My name is David Torrens. I'm 56 years old, and I haven't been in the water since March 2001. Not a pool, not a bathtub deep enough to submerge my head. Not even the ocean I can see from my apartment window in San Diego. People who know me from before find this strange. I was a deep-sea salvage diver for 18 years, certified to 1,000 feet, comfortable in environments that would kill most people in seconds. I love the work. I love the pressure, the darkness, the absolute silence of the deep. But that was before the Philippine Trench, before I learned what's really down there. I'm telling this story now because Marcus Chen resurfaced 3 weeks ago, not physically. He's been in the Columbia Psychiatric Institute in Portland since May 2001, the same locked ward, the same room. But something changed in him recently. The nurses called me because I'm listed as his emergency contact, the only member of our old crew who still visits. When I arrived, Marcus was sitting by the window, lucid for the first time in 23 years. He looked at me with clear eyes and said 5 words. "They're coming up, David, deeper." I don't know what that means. I don't know if Marcus is truly lucid or if this is another break from reality. But those words, combined with the 3 commercial fishing vessels that vanished off Mindanao last month, tell me it's time people knew the truth. Not the sanitized report filed with Maritime Safety International, not the equipment failure story that closed our case. The truth about what we found 800 feet down and what found us. This is hard to talk about. I've spent 23 years trying to convince myself it was nitrogen narcosis, pressure-induced hallucination, some kind of shared psychotic break brought on by depth and fear. But I have the footage. Corrupted, yes, but not entirely gone. I have the sonar logs I kept before they were scrubbed from official records. I have the scars on my left arm where something grabbed me, marks that don't match any known marine life. And I have Marcus, who came back wrong, who spent 19 days somewhere humans aren't supposed to survive and returned with knowledge that shattered his mind. I was 33 when this happened, young enough to think I was invincible, experienced enough to know the ocean's dangers. I'd done 200 commercial dives, recovered everything from airplane black boxes to WP munitions. I knew what belonged down there. I thought I did. The job came through in February 2001. A Liberian-flagged cargo vessel, the Celeste Maritime, had gone down 40 nautical miles northeast of Mindanao in the Philippines. Standard salvage operation, decent pay, 3-week contract. Our team of 5 had worked together for 4 years at Pacific Deep Recovery. We knew each other's rhythms, trusted each other's skills. Marcus Chen was our primary diver, 39 years old, ex-Navy salvage specialist with more deep certifications than anyone I'd met. He'd trained me when I first joined Pacific Deep, taught me how to manage nitrogen loading, how to stay calm when your body is screaming that the pressure should have killed you already. Marcus had a wife, 2 daughters in middle school. He was supposed to retire in 6 years. Jennifer Oakes was our secondary diver, 29, the best technical diver I'd ever worked with. Thomas Ruiz handled topside operations and dive medicine, 44, former Navy corpsman who managed our decompression protocols. I was the documentation specialist, managing cameras, sonar equipment, and sample collection. Peter Halifax, 51, was dive supervisor, running operations with rigid adherence to safety protocols. We flew into Davao on February 23rd and spent 3 days on equipment checks. The Celeste Maritime had gone down in 890 feet of water on the edge of the Philippine Trench. The trench itself dropped to over 34,000 feet just 15 miles east, creating unusual current patterns. Our initial sonar surveys showed the ship intact on the bottom, listing 30 degrees to port. We mapped the debris field and calculated our gas requirements. The first 2 days of diving went perfectly. Marcus and Jennifer made 4 dives each, documenting the wreck's exterior. No collision damage, no evidence of fire or explosion, no hull breach. Whatever sank the Celeste Maritime happened inside. On March 2nd, I went down with Marcus for my first dive on the wreck. We entered the water at 800 hours. Surface conditions were ideal. We descended at 75 feet per minute, the standard rate for deep diving. At 200 feet, the light began to fade. By 400 feet, we were in twilight. At 600 feet, we switched on our primary lights. That's when I first noticed something wrong with the sonar returns on my wrist display. The wreck showed clearly at 850 feet below us, but there were other shapes on the screen, irregular formations arranged in what looked like concentric circles extending away from the wreck site. I signaled Marcus, pointed to my display. His response came through the comm system. Seeing it too, probably volcanic basalt columns common in trench zones. At 750 feet, my lights picked up the first of the formations, not basalt, not rock. What we were looking at appeared to be coral at first glance, but the color was wrong, pale white and gray, and the shapes were wrong, too regular, too familiar. I swam closer. That's when I understood what I was seeing. The coral branches were bones, human bones, ribs, femurs, arm bones, arranged in deliberate patterns like some underwater garden. Dozens of skeletons, maybe hundreds, some still partially articulated. My breathing rate spiked. Marcus's voice was steady, but strained. We've found human remains, multiple individuals, extensive arrangement, requesting permission to document and continue to primary target. Peter's voice from the surface. Document thoroughly. Continue to wreck site. Bottom time now, 18 minutes remaining. I began filming. The formations extended in all directions beyond our light range. Some of the skeletons were old, bones stained dark and encrusted with marine growth. But others were newer, still ivory white, some with fragments of clothing attached. I saw a diving mask, a watch still strapped to a wrist bone, a wedding ring on a finger picked clean by scavengers. Then we heard the sound. Not through the water, but through the comm system itself. It started as a low-frequency tone, then rose in pitch and complexity. It sounded like whale song, but fragmented, mixed with something else, something that sounded like syllables, like words spoken underwater by something without human vocal anatomy. Peter's response: negative. No broadcast from surface. You're on a closed frequency. The sound continued, rising and falling in patterns that felt conversational. My depth gauge read 782 feet. My remaining bottom time was 14 minutes. Marcus made the hand signal for abort dive just as my light beam swept across something moving at the edge of visibility, something large, something that moved with deliberate, controlled motions. For just a moment, caught in my light beam, I saw pale skin, translucent, and a face that was watching us with focused intelligence. Then my camera died. The last frame showed a shape my brain still struggles to process. Two large eyes, webbed hands reaching toward us through the dark water. Marcus grabbed my arm. We're going up, now! The ascent should have taken 5 hours and 40 minutes. We made it in 4 hours and 52 minutes, cutting our decompression stops as short as protocol would allow. Every minute we spent hanging at our safety stops, suspended in dark water, with that sound still broadcasting on the comm system, felt like an eternity. Peter was furious when we surfaced. You could have bent yourselves. Whatever spooked you down there doesn't justify risking decompression sickness. He was right. In technical diving, panic kills more people than equipment failure. But Marcus and I had both felt the same overwhelming need to get away from that depth. We were in the decompression chamber within 20 minutes, breathing pure oxygen for 6 hours. Thomas monitored us for symptoms of decompression sickness. We were lucky. No symptoms appeared. But those 6 hours gave me time to think about what I'd seen. Jennifer and Peter reviewed our dive logs while we were in the chamber. The bone formations showed clearly on sonar returns, irregular structures extending roughly 300 feet in all directions from the wreck site. But there was no record of mass casualty events in this area. No sunken ships that would account for hundreds of bodies arranged on the seafloor. When we emerged, Peter had our camera equipment spread across the dive deck. Both systems shut down within seconds of each other at 782 feet. No water intrusion, no obvious electrical fault. The recording media is intact, but the files are corrupted. I've never seen this failure pattern. Thomas had recorded the sound from the surface. The bass frequency matches humpback whale vocalizations, but there's something else layered over it. High-frequency components that don't match any cataloged marine mammal. And there are patterns that look almost like speech phonemes, but distorted. Jennifer was examining the sonar logs. These formations aren't random. Look at the spacing. These structures are arranged in concentric rings, each ring approximately 40 feet from the next. That's not natural. Marcus had been quiet since emerging from the chamber. The remains aren't all Filipino. I saw diving equipment, modern equipment, and the arrangement isn't ceremonial. It's functional, like a garden plot, like something is cultivating them. The word cultivating hung in the air. Peter made the decision. We're documenting this and reporting it to Philippine maritime authorities. This is potentially a mass grave site. The Celeste Maritime Recovery is suspended until authorities clear the site. That should have been the end of it. But Jennifer noticed something we'd missed. The cargo holds are open. Look at these returns. The main hatch covers are off. Someone already accessed this wreck. Recently, Peter studied the screen. There's been no other salvage operation in this area. We're the only team with permits for this site. Someone else was here first, Jennifer said, and they went inside the wreck. We need to know what they found. The decision to make one more dive was probably the worst mistake of my life. Marcus volunteered to go down alone, just a quick survey of the cargo holds, 15 minutes of bottom time. Jennifer would be his backup at 400 feet. I would manage communications from the surface. Marcus descended at 1400 hours. His voice came through clear at each depth check. At 850 feet, he reached the wreck. Marcus descended at 1400 hours. His voice came through clear at each depth check. At 850 feet, he reached the wreck. Cargo hold accessed. Hatch covers removed from inside. Someone cut through the locking mechanism from the interior. Entering hold now. There was a long pause. Then, Jesus Christ. Report, Peter said immediately. The cargo. It's not what the manifest said. These aren't shipping containers. These are cages. Steel cages. Maybe 20 of them, each about 8 feet long. And they're all open. Whatever was inside is gone. My skin went cold. Marcus, get out of there. Wait, there's something written on the bulkhead, scratched into the metal, coordinates, and a date, December 1987, and it says, they took all of them. God forgive us. The sonar display erupted with new returns, dozens of them moving up from deeper water, ascending at impossible speeds, rising from the trench, converging on Marcus's position. Marcus, you have multiple fast movers approaching. Initiate emergency ascent. Jennifer, prepare to assist. Marcus's breathing rate spiked. I see them. There are dozens. They're surrounding the wreck. They're not fish. Peter, what are they? Through the comm system, I heard that sound again, louder now, coming from multiple sources, and underneath it, a rhythm that sounded like speech. Emergency ascent. Jennifer, descend to 600 feet and provide escort. But Marcus wasn't responding. His breathing had become rapid, shallow. On the sonar, I watched the returns close in around his position. His vital signs display began showing anomalies, heart rate dropping, oxygen consumption falling. His equipment is failing, Thomas said. But this isn't normal failure. His metabolic rate is decreasing. Jennifer reached 600 feet. I have visual on the wreck. I can see lights, multiple lights, but they're not Marcus's lights. They're bioluminescent, moving around the cargo hold. Marcus, respond. The comm system crackled. When Marcus spoke, his voice was wrong, too calm, too distant. I understand now. They're showing me. They've been taking them for so long. The cages. Marcus's vital signs dropped below consciousness threshold. On the sonar, I watched his return descend, not rising toward Jennifer, but sinking deeper, pulled down by the shapes that had surrounded him. Jennifer tried to follow, but Peter ordered her to abort at 720 feet. We listened to Marcus's regulator through the comm system for 8 minutes. Regular breathing, automated rhythm, then silence as he passed beyond communication range. The sonar tracked him to 1,400 feet before we lost the return. Marcus Chen had descended into the Philippine Trench, surrounded by things that shouldn't exist, and we had no way to follow him. Below 1,200 feet, the pressure is so intense that human physiology simply can't function. Marcus should have died within minutes, but we'd heard him breathing, regular, steady. For 8 minutes after he'd descended past the depth where human life is possible, Thomas insisted we maintain station. If there's any chance he's alive, we need to be here when he surfaces. We have hyperbaric facilities. We can't leave. So we stayed. Jennifer and I took turns monitoring the sonar. Peter filed a preliminary report with Philippine maritime authorities, carefully omitting the details about what Marcus had seen. The official report stated only that a diver had experienced probable nitrogen narcosis and descended beyond safe limits. The authorities told us to maintain position and await a Coast Guard vessel. They ordered us not to conduct any further diving operations. During those 24 hours, we reviewed everything. Thomas played the audio recording of Marcus's final transmissions dozens of times. Jennifer analyzed every frame of corrupted camera footage. I studied the sonar logs, tracing the movements of the shapes that had surrounded Marcus. The patterns were undeniable. They moved with coordination, with purpose, with tactical awareness. On the second night, Jennifer found me on deck. I found something in the historical records. In December 1987, a Philippine Navy patrol boat disappeared in this area. 7 crew members. No wreckage ever found. The official report concluded they were lost in a storm, but there was no storm in this region during December 1987. She showed me a naval report. 3 months before that, a commercial fishing vessel reported seeing lights in the water at night, bioluminescent displays that moved in organized patterns. They reported hearing sounds they described as singing from underwater. The Navy sent that patrol boat to investigate, and the boat never came back. "What about the cages?" I asked. Jennifer nodded slowly. The Celeste Maritime wasn't carrying electronics and textiles. She was contracted by a private security company. The crew manifest lists 8 people, but harbor records show 16 people boarded in Manila. 8 crew members and 8 passengers with no documentation. You think there were people in those cages? I think the cages were full when the ship went down, and I think whatever is down there knew the ship was coming. That's why the cargo hold was accessed from the inside. They were retrieving what had been delivered. We sat in silence. Then Jennifer asked the question I'd been avoiding. What did Marcus mean when he said they're still alive? Still conscious? I didn't have an answer. At 2,500 feet, the pressure exceeds 65 atmospheres. Nitrogen becomes toxic. Oxygen becomes poisonous. There is no gas mixture that allows human consciousness at those depths, unless something else is maintaining it, something that has learned to keep humans alive there for its own purposes. The Coast Guard arrived 31 hours after Marcus disappeared. They interviewed each of us, reviewed our equipment, examined our logs. They were professional but skeptical. The lead investigator, Commander Reyes, was blunt. Your diver experienced nitrogen narcosis and descended beyond safe limits. The formations you describe are likely natural geological features combined with remains from historical maritime accidents. The sounds and shapes your sonar detected are acoustic phenomena. Thermal layers and gas vents can produce effects that seem anomalous. They were going to bury it, classify it as an accident caused by diver error. None of our evidence mattered. We were ordered to recover our equipment and depart Philippine waters within 72 hours. On our last night at the location, the sonar alarm triggered. A single return ascending from deep water, rising slowly, taking a decompression profile that suggested controlled ascent. coming from over 200 feet. I woke the others. We watched the return climb. It took hours. The ascent rate was perfect, exactly what decompression tables would recommend. The return stopped at regular intervals for the exact amount of time needed for gas elimination at each depth. At 400 feet, Jennifer suited up. "If that's Marcus, he'll need assistance. I'm going down." She descended to 300 feet and held position. Her voice came through 20 minutes later with something I'd never heard before, something like grief mixed with horror. "I have visual. It's Marcus. He's alive. He's ascending on his own power. But Peter, his eyes are open. He's staring at me. And he's not breathing from his regulator. His regulator isn't even in his mouth. He's just ascending, without breathing, like the pressure doesn't affect him anymore." We brought Marcus aboard just before dawn on March 5th. He'd been underwater for 61 hours. He'd descended to depths where human life isn't possible and returned. His skin was pale, translucent, blood vessels visible beneath the surface in patterns that seemed wrong. His eyes were open, pupils dilated, unresponsive to light. He was breathing, but slowly, maybe 3 breaths per minute. His heart rate was 22 beats per minute. His body temperature was 88 degrees. He should have been dead. Every measure of human physiology said he couldn't be alive. But he was moving, standing, his eyes tracking movement, even though he didn't respond to our voices. Thomas tried to examine him, but Marcus wouldn't let anyone touch him. He stood on the dive deck, water streaming from his suit, and when we tried to approach, he backed away with movements that were too fluid, too graceful. Then he spoke. His voice was wrong, the tone off, the rhythm broken. "They wanted me to tell you. They wanted you to understand. The gardens are full, hundreds of them, thousands, kept alive at depths where light doesn't reach, fed by minerals from thermal vents, maintained in suspension between consciousness and death. Some have been there since the war, the second one, the ships that went down and were never found, the crews that vanished. They're all there, all still aware, all waiting." "Marcus, you need medical treatment," Thomas said carefully. "We're going to take you to a hospital." Marcus tilted his head at an angle that necks don't naturally bend to. "I'm not Marcus anymore, not completely. They changed something when they took me down, showed me things, put something in me that lets me survive the pressure. I can feel it, in my blood, in my lungs. I could go back down right now, descend to 2,000 feet without equipment, live there, join the garden." "Why?" Jennifer asked. "Why would they do that? Why keep people alive down there?" Marcus's eyes fixed on her. In the dawn light, I could see they'd changed color, paler than they should be. The iris a washed-out gray-blue instead of Marcus's natural brown. "Because they're lonely, because they've been alone in the deep for so long, longer than humans have had language. They're the old ones, the first ones. Before we crawled onto land, before we learned to breathe air. And they remember us. They remember when we were the same, when we lived in the water together. They want us back. They want to show us where we came from, what we lost when we chose the surface." He took a step toward the rail, toward the dark water beyond. Peter moved to block him, but Marcus was faster. He vaulted the rail with inhuman ease and dropped into the ocean, disappearing beneath the surface without a sound. We reported everything to the authorities. They dismissed it as psychological trauma and decompression-induced psychosis. Marcus was declared lost at sea, presumed dead. His family held a memorial service in April 2001, but Marcus wasn't dead. 19 days after he went back into the water, he surfaced near a fishing boat 200 miles south of where we'd lost him. The fishermen found him floating, conscious, his skin even paler than before. They brought him to a hospital in Davao. The doctors couldn't explain his condition. His blood chemistry was wrong. His lung capacity was triple normal human range. His eyes had adapted to process light in spectrums humans don't normally see. He couldn't speak anymore, not in any way that made sense. He would make sounds that resembled the vocalizations we'd heard on the comm system. When doctors tried to keep him out of water for more than 6 hours, He would have seizures. He needed immersion, needed pressure. They transferred him to the Psychiatric Institute in Portland because his wife lived in Oregon and wanted him close. I visit him once a month. For 23 years, he sat in that room, staring at nothing, occasionally making those sounds. The doctors think he's catatonic, his mind broken by whatever trauma he experienced. But 3 weeks ago, he spoke, clear, lucid. He looked at me and said, "They're coming up, moving to shallower water, adapting to depths where humans dive regularly." He said the gardens are full and they need more. He said they've learned to change people faster now. The process that took 19 days with him takes only hours now. He said I should warn people, tell them what's in the deep water, tell them why certain dive sites have higher disappearance rates, tell them about the lights people see at night in trench zones, the singing that commercial fishermen report but never officially document. Then he stopped talking again, back to staring, back to those sounds. I don't know if Marcus is warning me or threatening me. I don't know if what's left of him is still human enough to care about preventing what he says is coming. But I know 3 fishing boats vanished off Mindanao last month in the same area where the Celeste Maritime went down. I know the recovery operation found one of the boats at 600 feet with its cargo hold accessed from the inside. And I know the Philippine Navy has quietly established the exclusion zone around the trench, prohibiting all commercial diving operations. I still have the corrupted footage from my camera. I've enhanced it as much as current technology allows. You can see them if you know what to look for. Pale shapes moving through the darkness. Faces that are almost human, but not quite. Eyes that are too large, adapted for crushing pressure and absolute darkness. Hands that are webbed, elongated, perfect for swimming at depths where humans can't survive. And you can see what they're reaching for. You can see the gardens Marcus described, rows of figures suspended in the water, attached to thermal vent formations, their bodies modified to survive without surface air, their minds kept conscious through mechanisms I can't begin to understand. Some of them are moving, some of them are trying to swim, but none of them can leave. Whatever was done to them binds them to that depth, to that pressure, to that darkness. Marcus was lucky. They let him go. They changed him and sent him back as a message, as proof, as a warning, or an invitation. The others in the gardens weren't given that choice. They're still down there, still aware, still waiting in the crushing darkness, while those pale shapes tend to them like crops, like livestock, like something precious that must be maintained and expanded. I don't go in the water anymore because I know what's waiting below the light. I know what happens to people who sink too deep, who descend past the safe limits, who ignore the warnings about certain dive sites and certain depths. I know the stories about missing divers aren't all accidents or equipment failures or poor planning. Some of them found the gardens, or the gardens found them. And now they're part of something older than human civilization, something that's been collecting us since we first learned to swim, keeping us in the deep water where we came from, where those things believe we belong. Marcus said they're coming up, moving shallower. I don't know what that means for people who dive recreationally, for commercial operations, for anyone who goes into deep water. But I know I won't be there when it happens. I'll stay on land, stay dry, and try not to think about the thousands of people suspended in darkness at the bottom of the Philippine Trench, still conscious, still aware, maintained by things that remember when we all lived in the water together. I didn't tell anyone the full story for 2 years after we returned from the Philippines. I filed reports, attended debriefings, spoke with maritime safety investigators. I gave them the sanitized version: equipment failure, probable nitrogen narcosis, tragic accident. The words felt hollow, but they were what everyone wanted to hear. Pacific Deep Recovery dissolved 6 months after we lost Marcus. Peter retired and moved to Arizona, as far from the ocean as he could get. Thomas took a position teaching hyperbaric medicine at a university in Michigan. Jennifer disappeared. She stopped answering calls in June 2001, And when I went to her apartment in San Diego, the landlord said she'd broken her lease and left no forwarding address. I found her 3 months later in Costa Rica. She was living in a small house in the mountains, working as a carpenter, doing anything that kept her away from water. When I showed up at her door, she didn't seem surprised. "I knew you'd come eventually," she said. "You're the only one who can't let it go." She was right. I couldn't stop thinking about what Marcus had said, about the gardens, about people kept alive in crushing darkness. I'd spent 2 years researching maritime disappearances, cross-referencing dive accidents with proximity to deep water trenches, looking for patterns. I found 47 cases, I told Jennifer, spreading documents across her kitchen table. 47 commercial divers who vanished during operations near trench zones in the last 30 years. No bodies recovered, no equipment found. Official explanations range from equipment failure to shark attacks to strong currents. But they all disappeared at depths between 600 and 900 feet, and they all reported unusual sonar readings or strange vocalizations before they vanished. Jennifer looked at the documents without touching them. "What do you want me to say, David? That you're right? That there's something down there harvesting divers?" "We already know that. We saw it." "Someone believes us," I said. "I've been contacted by others, divers who've seen things they can't explain. A salvage operator in Japan who lost 2 crew members near the Mariana Trench in 1998. They described the same formations, the same sounds. A Norwegian offshore oil worker who encountered something at 800 feet in the North Sea. His partner disappeared. He won't dive anymore. He won't even go near the ocean." "How many?" Jennifer asked quietly. 12 people willing to talk, maybe 50 more who won't go on record, but confirmed similar experiences. And there are historical accounts going back decades. A Soviet deep-sea research team in 1973 that reported biological structures of unknown origin in the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench. 3 team members disappeared during subsequent dives. A French oceanographic expedition in 1984 that found organized arrangement of human remains near the Puerto Rico Trench. The expedition was terminated immediately. Jennifer picked up one of the documents, a translated Soviet report. She read it slowly, her face growing paler. "They knew. Governments have known about this for decades." "Not just governments," I said. "The company that hired us, that sent us to recover the Celeste Maritime. I did some digging into their ownership structure. They're a shell company, owned by a defense contractor that specializes in deep-sea operations and biological research. I think we were sent there deliberately. I think they wanted us to find what we found." "Why?" I pulled out a procurement order I'd obtained through a contact in military logistics. "Because someone is trying to replicate what they do, the biological mechanisms that allow them to keep humans alive at extreme depth. The U.S. Navy has been running a classified program since 1989 called Deep Acclimation. They're studying extreme pressure adaptation, forced biological modification, suspended consciousness states." Jennifer put the document down like it burned her. "You think the Navy is trying to create their own gardens?" "I think multiple governments are trying," I said, "and I think they've been using those things as a model. What if the Celeste Maritime wasn't an accident? What if those cages were full of people being deliberately delivered? Prisoners, political dissidents, anyone who needed to disappear. What if there's been an arrangement for decades? Human subjects in exchange for access, for observation, for understanding how the biological modification works?" Jennifer stood and walked to the window. Her hands were shaking. "That would make us complicit. Every time we accepted the official explanation, we were helping cover up a harvest operation." "We didn't know," I said. "We knew enough," Jennifer said. "We heard what Marcus said about the gardens being full, and we let the authorities dismiss it. We went home." "I'm going public," I said. "I'm documenting every case I've found, publishing it where it can't be buried. Because 3 months ago, a dive operator in the Philippines started offering extreme depth dives near the trench, tourist dives to 800 feet, premium pricing. They're advertising it as exploring mysterious deep-sea formations. The first group goes down next month. 15 divers. Jennifer's face went white. Someone is deliberately sending divers down there. I think someone is filling an order, I said. I think the gardens are expanding, and I think whatever arrangement exists requires regular deliveries. Jennifer was quiet for a long time. Then, we go back. We document it properly this time. We get clear footage, solid evidence, something that can't be dismissed. We go down to those formations and record everything. That's suicide. Marcus went down unprepared and alone, Jennifer said. We go together. We use equipment that can't be corrupted. We document the gardens and surface before they can stop us. And if they don't let us leave? Jennifer met my eyes. Then at least we tried. Marcus contacted me 6 months after my conversation with Jennifer. Not a phone call. A message left at my apartment slipped under my door while I was out. Handwritten on paper that felt wrong, too slick, too organic. David, I'm still here, still aware. They let me surface sometimes, walk on land. They want me to bring others down, show them what I've seen, show them the gardens. I've refused, but I can't refuse forever. If you want to document what's really down there, I can take you. I can get you to the gardens and back. Because I'm one of them now, they trust me. Meet me in Davao, March 2024. I'll have equipment. The message included an address and a date. I showed it to Jennifer. The paper left residue on our hands, oily and faintly bioluminescent in darkness. This could be a trap, Jennifer said. Marcus might not be Marcus anymore. He might be bringing you down there to add you to the gardens. I know, I said. But if there's any chance to get real documentation, proof that can't be dismissed, I have to try. Jennifer shook her head. We both go. We don't separate down there. And we bring our own equipment, our own safety protocols. We don't rely entirely on what Marcus provides. We spent the next year preparing. Jennifer designed redundant recording systems with hardened storage. We tested equipment at progressively deeper depths, pushing our limits. We made arrangements for the footage to be automatically released if we didn't return within a specified time frame. On March 3, 2024, we arrived in Davao. The address led to a warehouse near the docks. Inside, Marcus was waiting, and I barely recognized him. His skin was translucent, showing modified internal systems. His eyes were fully gray, reflective. When he moved, it was with fluid grace that looked wrong. You came, Marcus said. His voice was different, the tone off. Both of you. Good. You'll need each other down there. He showed us equipment that shouldn't exist. Diving suits made from material that felt alive. Rebreathers using organic filtration. Cameras housed in crystalline shells. This is from them, Marcus explained. Made in the deep. This will let you survive at depth. The suit bonds with your skin, creates a secondary system that manages pressure. You'll be able to reach the gardens. And when we surface? I asked. You'll have residual changes, Marcus said. Enhanced lung capacity, better pressure tolerance. Nothing like what I have, but you'll never be quite the same. Jennifer examined the equipment carefully. We're bringing our own recording systems too, redundant documentation. Marcus nodded. Smart. They can corrupt electronic systems, but they can't stop you from seeing, from remembering. We spent 2 days preparing. Marcus arranged a fishing vessel with a crew that moved too precisely, their eyes reflecting wrong in the light. They were modified, Marcus said, early stage, still mostly human. We departed on March 5th, exactly 23 years after Marcus had disappeared. The parallel felt deliberate. We reached the site by noon, the same coordinates from 2001. The water was unnaturally calm. Marcus helped me into the biological suit. It sealed around my body like a second skin. I felt it connect, felt something penetrate my skin at multiple points. The rebreather attached to my face, and I felt it grow into my nasal passages. I gagged, then adapted. Jennifer suited up beside me, her face pale but determined. We attached our cameras, checked our backup systems. "Ready?" Marcus asked. We entered the water at 1300 hours. The suit activated fully, changing my body chemistry, slowing my heart rate. We descended rapidly, far faster than standard protocols allowed. At 200 feet, I expected nitrogen narcosis. I felt nothing but clarity. At 600 feet, we should have been at maximum safe depth. We kept descending. At 750 feet, we reached the bone formations. They'd grown since 2001, extending hundreds of yards. I could see the deliberate organization, the geometric patterns. New additions, fresh bones still settling into position. Marcus led us deeper, moving through the formations with familiarity. At 850 feet, we reached the Celeste Maritime. The wreck had collapsed further, but the cargo hold was accessible. We entered. The cages were still there, empty and twisted. Beyond them, through a gap that shouldn't exist, I saw bioluminescent light pulsing in rhythmic patterns. Marcus gestured for us to follow. We passed through into space that extended beyond the ship's physical dimensions. The walls glowed, showing structures part geological and part organic. And throughout the space, I saw them. The gardens, living people, dozens of them, suspended in water at regular intervals, attached to walls by organic tethers that pulsed with nutrient flow. Their bodies had been modified, skin translucent, showing changed internal systems. Their eyes were open, tracking movement. They were conscious, aware, watching us. And they'd been here for months or years or decades, unable to move, unable to speak, kept alive in crushing pressure. Jennifer grabbed my arm, her breathing rapid. Some of the people were trying to move toward us, mouths opening and closing soundlessly. Whatever had been done to them had taken their voices, but not their awareness. I was filming everything. Jennifer's cameras were recording. We moved deeper into the garden, past people whose modifications were so extensive they barely looked human anymore. Extended limbs, restructured torsos, faces reshaped for hydrodynamic efficiency, but their eyes still showed human intelligence, human horror. "This is what they've been building," Marcus said. "A population of modified humans who can survive at any depth. They're creating a new subspecies, taking us back to the water." Then they appeared, the deep ones, rising from crevices and spaces between the suspended bodies. Pale shapes, 8 to 10 feet long, translucent skin showing alien internal systems. Massive eyes adapted for the abyss, hands with elongated fingers and extensive webbing. They surrounded us, examining us with what felt like curiosity. One approached me directly, touched where the suit had integrated with my body. It made a sound, a vibration that resonated in my skull. Not language, but I understood. Recognition. It knew Marcus, understood why we were here. The deep one gestured for us to follow. We descended past more layers of suspended humans, past structures that were part architecture and part organism. Jennifer's hand found mine, squeezing tight enough to hurt through the suit. We reached what Marcus called the source, a massive organic structure filling a cavern the size of a cathedral, pulsing with bioluminescence. It was connected by thousands of tendrils to the thermal vent system and to the suspended humans throughout the gardens. This was what maintained them, kept them conscious while their bodies were rebuilt. The deep ones communicated with the structure through vibrations, creating patterns of light response in its tissue. They were tending it, maintaining it, and I understood what Marcus had tried to explain. From their perspective, this was salvation. They were saving humans, bringing us back to the water. The horror was that they couldn't understand we didn't want this. Marcus pointed upward. We'd been down for 90 minutes, time to surface. We began ascending, moving back through the gardens. But as we passed the newest section, Jennifer stopped. She'd recognized someone, a man suspended near the entrance, his modifications still minimal, his face still recognizably human. She swam closer, and I saw her body go rigid. She knew him. I moved beside her and looked at the man's face. It was Peter Halifax, our dive supervisor from 2001. The man who'd retired to Arizona to get away from the ocean. He'd been taken. His eyes tracked Jennifer's movement, widening with recognition. His mouth opened, trying to speak, but no sound came. Jennifer made a sound through her rebreather, something between a sob and a scream. She reached for Peter, trying to disconnect the tethers that held him. Marcus grabbed her arm, pulled her back. "You can't free them," Marcus said. "The modifications are too far along. Without the tethers, without the system maintaining them, they'd die. The pressure would crush what's left of their original physiology." "When?" Jennifer demanded. "When did they take him?" 6 months ago, 6 months ago, Marcus said quietly. "I saw him brought down. He'd been investigating, following the same patterns you and David found. He got too close. They collected him from his home in Arizona, brought him to the coast, took him down." Jennifer was shaking. "We have to do something. We can't just leave him here." "There's nothing we can do," I said, though it felt like betrayal. "Marcus is right. Peter's been changed too much. We document this. We get the footage to the surface. We make sure people know what's happening." We continued ascending. At 400 feet, the biological suit began contracting, preparing to detach. At 200 feet, I felt it separating from my skin, withdrawing the connections it had made to my circulatory system. The process was painful, leaving marks where it had penetrated deepest. We surfaced after 2 hours of decompression stops. The crew pulled us aboard, their modified eyes watching us with something that might have been sympathy. Marcus surfaced last, moving through the water without equipment, without apparent need to breathe. Jennifer removed her rebreather, gasping. "We have to go back. We have to find a way to free them." "There is no way," Marcus said, climbing onto the deck with inhuman ease. "They're part of the system now, part of what's being built. The only way to free them would be to destroy the entire garden complex. And there are dozens of these sites, maybe hundreds, all over the world, wherever trenches provide access to extreme depth." "How many people?" I asked. "How many are down there total?" Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Thousands, maybe tens of thousands. They've been collecting for decades, building population, preparing." "Preparing for what?" Jennifer demanded. "For the return," Marcus said. "They believe humans made a mistake when we left the water, when we evolved to breathe air, to live on land. They're correcting that mistake, one person at a time right now. But soon, they'll accelerate, take larger groups, entire ships. When the deep ocean currents shift and conditions are optimal, they'll begin mass collection." "When?" I asked. 18 months, Marcus said. "Maybe less. The signal will come. The modified ones working on the surface will help. They'll sabotage ships, create accidents, bring people into the water, and the deep ones will be waiting." We sailed back to Davao in silence. Jennifer and I reviewed the footage we'd captured, hours of video showing the gardens, the suspended people, the deep ones tending their crop. It was undeniable evidence of what existed in the deep water. But when we tried to copy the files to backup storage, they corrupted. Every electronic recording system we'd brought had been affected by something during the dive. The video degraded, became unreadable. Only the footage stored in the biological cameras Marcus had provided remained intact, embedded in the organic matrix of the suits we'd worn. "They planned this," Jennifer said, staring at the corrupted files. "They let us document everything, knowing we could only preserve it using their technology. Technology that's partially alive, that they might be able to control or erase remotely." Marcus shook his head. "The biological storage is permanent. They can't erase it without destroying the physical medium. But they knew you'd try electronic backup. They disrupted it during the dive. Electromagnetic pulses at frequencies that don't affect organic systems, but destroy digital storage." "So we have proof, but only in a format most people can't access," I said. "I can extract it," Marcus said. "Convert it to formats that can be shared. But David, Jennifer, you need to understand. Releasing this footage will make you targets. The modified ones on the surface, the ones working in maritime industries and government agencies, they'll try to stop you. They'll discredit you, or they'll make you disappear." "We have to try," Jennifer said. Peter is down there, those other people are down there, conscious and aware and trapped. We have to tell someone. We returned to the United States with the biological storage units concealed in sealed containers. Marcus had extracted the footage to encrypted drives, but he warned us to keep the original organic storage intact. It was the only proof that couldn't be faked or dismissed as CGI. For 3 months, we prepared our release. We contacted journalists, documentary filmmakers, marine biologists. We built a website with all our evidence, all the historical cases, all the patterns. We planned to release everything simultaneously, make it impossible to suppress. Then Thomas Ruiz drowned in his swimming pool. The news hit me like a physical blow. Thomas had helped us with research, provided medical analysis, and now he was dead in circumstances that made no sense for an experienced swimmer. 2 weeks later, Jennifer disappeared. Her apartment was empty, her car still in the parking lot. No signs of struggle, no indication where she'd gone. But I knew they'd taken her, brought her back to the gardens. I was next. I knew it. But I had to finish what we'd started. I uploaded everything to multiple servers, set up deadman switches that would release the data if I failed to check in. I contacted every media outlet I could think of. Most ignored me. A few investigated, but their stories were killed before publication. The footage was dismissed as elaborate hoaxes. I was labeled a conspiracy theorist. Former colleagues gave interviews saying I'd never recovered from the trauma of 2001, that I'd become obsessed and delusional. Marcus visited me one last time. "They're coming for you tonight," he said. "The modified ones. They'll take you to the coast, bring you down, add you to the gardens. Your documentation will be buried, forgotten. This is how it ends." "Then help me," I said. "You can stop them. You're stronger than they are, faster. You could—" "I can't," Marcus interrupted, "because part of me doesn't want to. Part of me believes what they believe, that humans belong in the water, that the gardens are necessary, that you should join them. I'm fighting that part, but I don't know how much longer I can." He left. I sat in my apartment waiting, but instead of modified humans coming to take me, my phone rang. Unknown number. "Mr. Torrens?" a woman's voice. "My name is Dr. Sarah Chen. I'm Marcus's daughter. My father asked me to call you. He said to tell you he's going back to the gardens, permanently. And he said you have one choice left. You can hide, spend the rest of your life running. Or you can tell this story, put it somewhere it can't be erased. Even if no one believes you now, eventually, when more people disappear, when ships start sinking in patterns, someone will remember. Someone will look at your evidence and understand." "Where is he?" I asked. "Already gone," she said. "He walked into the ocean this morning, said he couldn't stay on land anymore, couldn't fight what he'd become. But before he left, he gave me something for you, the original biological storage from your dive. He said to keep it safe, said someday someone will believe." 6 months after Marcus returned to the ocean, the first cruise ship vanished. The Caribbean Star, a luxury liner with 2,400 passengers and crew, disappeared without distress call while crossing deep water between Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. The last known position was directly over the Puerto Rico Trench. Search and rescue found nothing. No debris, no life rafts, no bodies. The ship had simply ceased to exist. Official investigation concluded catastrophic structural failure, leading to rapid sinking, though no evidence supported that conclusion. The families of the lost received settlements. The story faded from news coverage within a month. I knew better. I knew what had really happened. The ship had been taken, pulled down into deep water by something that wanted its passengers. 2,400 people delivered to the gardens in a single operation. 3 months later, a container ship vanished in the Mariana Trench, then a research vessel in the Tonga Trench, then a fishing fleet off the coast of Japan, 12 boats disappearing simultaneously. The official explanations varied: storms, equipment failure, piracy, but the pattern was clear to anyone who looked. The harvest had accelerated, mass collection had begun. I tried to warn people. I published articles, gave interviews to anyone who would listen. I showed the footage Marcus had helped me extract. Most dismissed it as hoaxes or psychological breakdown. A few believed but felt powerless to act. What could anyone do against something that lived in the abyss, that had been planning this for longer than human civilization existed? Then I started receiving messages from other divers, from maritime workers, from people who'd lost family members in the disappearances. They'd seen things, heard things, found evidence that matched what I'd documented. We formed a network, sharing information, tracking patterns. We identified 17 of the modified ones Marcus had told me about. People working in Coast Guard stations, naval facilities, maritime safety agencies. We documented their physiological anomalies, their gaps in employment history. We compiled evidence that should have been undeniable, and we were ignored, or worse, actively suppressed. Investigations were shut down. Whistleblowers were discredited. Evidence disappeared from secure facilities. That's when I understood the scope of what we were facing. It wasn't just the deep ones, it was human governments, commercial interests, research organizations. Some of them had been compromised by modified ones in positions of authority. Others had made deliberate arrangements, trading access to human subjects in exchange for biological knowledge and technology. The conspiracy theorists had been right all along. There was a plan to depopulate the surface, to return humanity to the ocean, and it had been in motion for decades. In October 2024, I received a package, no return address. Inside was a crystalline storage unit like the ones Marcus had provided. When I connected it to my computer, it played a video. Jennifer, suspended in a garden, her body extensively modified, skin translucent, limbs elongated, but her eyes were aware, tracking the camera, watching me watch her. And behind her, hundreds of others, including Peter Halifax and Thomas Ruiz. A message appeared on screen, text in English but formatted wrong, the letters slightly off. The gardens are full. The signal comes soon. You can warn them, or you can join them. Choose. I'm making my choice now. I'm telling this story to anyone who will listen. I'm putting it in places where it can't be erased. Printed books, distributed files, archived in locations around the world. Because in less than a year, Marcus said the signal would come. The deep ones would begin mass collection. Ships would sink in numbers that couldn't be ignored or explained away. And when that happens, when people finally understand what's in the deep water, this document will be here. This evidence will exist. The footage will prove I wasn't delusional or mistaken. The gardens are full. They're preparing to expand. And every person who goes into deep water, every ship that crosses a trench, every submarine that descends into the abyss, they're at risk of being collected, of being taken down, modified, kept conscious while their bodies are rebuilt for a life they didn't choose. I'm 56 years old. I haven't been in the water since 2001, but I know they're coming for me eventually. Marcus told me the modified ones remember who documented the gardens, who tried to warn people. They'll take me last, he said, because they want me to see how it unfolds, want me to watch as ships disappear and populations are transferred to the deep. I visit Dr. Sarah Chen once a month. She still has the original biological storage from my dive with her father. We've arranged for it to be distributed if anything happens to either of us. The footage will survive, will eventually reach people who can understand what it shows. Sometimes I dream about the gardens, about Jennifer and Peter and Thomas suspended in the dark water, conscious and aware, waiting. Part of something older than humanity, something that remembers when we lived in the ocean, something that wants us back. And I wonder if they're suffering, or if the modifications have changed them enough that they've accepted their new existence. If they've become something that no longer mourns their surface life, that has learned to thrive in crushing pressure and eternal darkness. I don't know, and I'm afraid I'll find out soon enough.